Hey, everybody, and welcome to True Crime Paranormal with the Psychic Sisters. This is Katie Weaver, and I'm here with my co-host, partner in crime, and sister, Kristi Brower. Hello.
Hello. Hey, everybody. As usual, excited to be here.
Yeah, first show of the week.
First show of the week. Plus, we're just talking about Crazy Town, man.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting
You guys...
stuff.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I love the old cases because there's so much interesting stuff just to see how much things have changed in 100 years.
Mm-hmm. Or how they haven't.
In this case.
In this case.
True. Also in this case, yeah.
We've joked before that Lori Vallow is one of the women with the golden vagina, right? She just can't quit luring men in, and men just can't quit just sidling up to her and getting involved in her bullshit. Well, we discovered the very first serial killer, female serial killer in Idaho, first known. It was actually a listener request, so thank you so much for that. So we're going to talk to you guys a little today about Lyda Southard. Now, Lyda shares some stark similarities to Lori Vallow in that she likes to kill her husbands. For anyone guess what? Of course,
anyone who gets in her way.
And any thought at all? Yep, anyone in her way, but mostly it looks like for, life insurance.
Yeah.
Yes. So Lyda had at least 5 victims, and this is not including the children that died on her watch. We'll tell you a little about those too, but she killed 5 husbands for life insurance money.
Well, I guess, and a brother-in-law.
And a brother-in-law, yeah.
Who got a little too nosy.
Yes. He seemed to know a little too much. So let's start at the beginning. She was born in 1892 in Missouri. She married a guy named Robert Dooley in 1912, and they moved to Twin Falls, Idaho. In 1914, they had a daughter named Lorraine, and Lorraine died unexpectedly in 1915. Her mother said it was because she drank water from a dirty well. Now, obviously, every death around her we're going to be suspicious of, right?
Yeah.
That's number one.
Well, she drank some dirty water, but might not have been from a well. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So
I'm just saying.
Shortly after, in August of 1915, her husband died, Edward Dooley. The death was ruled potamine poisoning?
Ptomaine
poisoning. And shortly thereafter, Robert Dooley died of typhoid fever. So in 1 year, in 1915, the brother-in-law died, the husband died, and the daughter died, leaving her as the sole survivor in the family.
This should have been a massive red flag.
You'd think. But she collected life insurance on all of them.
Conveniently.
And for 2 years, it looks like she maybe was on her own. Then she got married to a guy named William McCaffell. And she actually had a daughter at this point that was living. And at that point, her daughter died right after she got married. How convenient. Or maybe inconvenient was the daughter.
In the way of the new marriage.
Right. So they moved to Montana. A year later, McCaffell got what they called at the time maybe influenza. And you know what? He kicked the bucket on October 1st, 1918. The death certificate said that he died of influenza and diphtheria. Now that's some bad luck.
That is some super bad luck, yeah.
Yeah. That was in 1918. In 1919, she married a guy named Harlan Lewis. He was an automobile salesman from Billings, Montana. Well, he must have been a serious pain in the ass. Yeah. Because 4 months after their marriage, he died.
He really didn't like him.
Right? From complications of gastroenteritis.
See, okay, two things. First of all, ptomaine poisoning is just food poisoning, generally doesn't kill you.
Yeah.
Also, gastritis is just like an inflammation of the stomach, and it also doesn't kill you. So they're just kind of grasping here,
Right.
Well, and the baby that died of bad water,
yeah.
Okay, legitimately, we're talking about very early 1900s, and so people, they didn't know. They were just guessing.
I mean, y'all know how when Tammy Daybell died, Chad was like, we don't need no autopsy. And they were like, yeah, a healthy 49-year-old woman kicks it in the night. We don't need no autopsy.
Seems totally normal.
I'm guessing that what was put on the death certificate was what she told them to put on the death certificate.
I'll bet you're right.
So that wasn't good enough. That was in 1919. In 1920, in August of 1920, she married Edward Meyer. He was a ranch foreman in Pocatello, Idaho, and he must have been a terrible lover because on September 7th, 1920, just 4 weeks into the marriage, he fell ill of typhoid and died.
My gosh. She just literally must be the most unlucky person I have ever met in my life.
Right? Every man she marries just breaks her heart again.
Yeah.
Yes. So we have a list of marriages for her that actually goes well beyond that. She married Paul Southard, which we'll get to. And then we also believe she was married for a time to a man named Harry Whitlock and then another guy named Hal Shaw.
So just out of curiosity, how are those two guys doing? I mean, they're dead now, but...
Right. We don't know. On all three of the last ones, it says that they were potentially divorced. So maybe they got wise to her wily ways, but married 7 times. So here's what happened. Earl Dooley, he was a relative of her first husband, was quite sure she was full of shit and started to study the deaths surrounding her. Because, sometimes when someone's husbands all keep dying, some people just might go, that's a little odd.
Something's off here. Yeah.
Something's not right. So he, along with a physician and another chemist, they must have, I don't know if they exhumed Ed and Bob Dooley, but they determined that they determined they were actually murdered by arsenic poisoning. So they got in cahoots with the Twin Falls County prosecutor, a guy named Frank Steffen, and Frank started an investigation and exhumed the bodies of 3 of her husbands and her 4-year-old daughter and her brother-in-law. And they discovered that some of the bodies did have traces of arsenic. And others were suspected of arsenic poisoning because of how well the bodies were preserved. And because she was lapping up the life insurance from every one of them.
Right.
Which was concerning. She was able to collect a whopping $7,000 over the deaths of her 3 husbands.
Whoa. Okay, but 100 years ago, I mean, that was a lot of money.
Now, you ready to be weirded out and Lori Vallowed out? She was found by law enforcement in Hawaii.
Yes, I know. Weird, huh?
For the 5th time to Navy Petty Officer Paul Southard. She was extradited to Idaho on June 11th, 1921. Yeah.
Weird.
What if she tried to fight extradition?
I wonder.
Who wonders?
I wonder if there was, I wonder what her bond, well, we know what her bond was. Well, we know what a reward was for her. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, there was a reward. They were looking hard. $50, bro. $50.
That was a lot then. Well, I was pretty curious about this whole arsenic thing.
Yes.
Because what the history says is that she was using flypaper.
Yeah.
Now, first of all, we grew up around tons of flypaper because
Yeah.
our grandparents had a pig farm. You can imagine the number of flies. It was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, those little spiral things that used to hang from the ceiling.
Yeah.
God forbid you had to be the one to take one down or put one up, because if they stuck to you, it was never coming off.
You guys ever had one of those in your hair?
I have.
I have.
So have you. Yeah.
Such a
Not
bad
cool.
deal.
Well,
Yeah.
apparently they don't anymore, but they used to contain arsenic. That's how they killed the flies, right?
Yeah.
Super weird. So I looked up some stuff because I'm like, okay, can you really kill somebody with flypaper? Turns out, at her time, yes, you can. So back when they made flypaper with arsenic salt in it, a typical flypaper contains somewhere between 150 and 400 milligrams of soluble arsenic salts. So, and it was potentially lethal, and it could be hidden in strong tea or coffee. So I did look up what is a lethal dose of arsenic, and it is 140 to 1400 milligrams for an average sized adult.
Wow.
So potentially just one flypaper could have had enough to kill somebody.
Yeah.
By
Or
dissolving it in water.
if you did this over the course of several days,
Yeah.
it's just building and building until it's D-Day.
Exactly. Yeah, I was really curious. Like, gosh, what would it take? Would it be like tons and tons of flypapers?
Yeah.
It actually really
Not
isn't.
necessarily. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, she had a trial. She had a 6-week trial. She was convicted of second-degree murder, and she was sentenced to 10 years in prison. 10 years for all those murders.
Yeah.
10 years. But on May 4th, 1931, she escaped from prison. I'm sure using the bright and shining golden vagina yet
Oh,
again.
yeah. It was with the help of a prison guard whom she had convinced that she was innocent and, used that shining jar to, yeah, she actually had help from a prison guard to escape.
Christ on a cracker. It's just hard for me to believe. I mean, I know it happened. I'm not saying it didn't, but wow.
Yeah.
Well, she fled to Denver, Colorado, and she worked as a housekeeper, which I think is so bizarre because she seemed to be quite above that kind of life here just a moment ago.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, guess what? She worked as a housekeeper to a guy named Harry Whitlock, who she married.
Yeah.
Then Harry found out that she was a wanted woman because she killed all her
Mm-hmm.
husbands and she had escaped from prison. So he actually helped the authorities arrest her and return her to the penitentiary in August of 1932. So she was there until 1941, where she received a final pardon in 1942.
Pardon. She was freaking pardoned.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
And then it sounds like that is when she married the last husband, Hal Shaw, and moved to Salt Lake City, Utah. She died there of a heart attack in 1958. And she is buried in Twin Falls at the Sunset Memorial Cemetery.
that is so bonkers to me. First of
Mm-hmm.
all, why was she pardoned?
Yeah.
Second of all, I mean,
She was a serial
WTF,
killer.
America? Come on. She
Yeah.
really was. She was a serial, but she was definitely killing for financial gain.
Mm-hmm.
And she
Well,
was pretty
and convenience.
brutal. Mhm. Well, and just the way of killing, like dying of arsenic poisoning is terrible.
Yes.
That's a miserable way to go.
Yeah.
I read somewhere that when they issued a warrant for her arrest, they searched somewhere where they found several rolls of fly paper and a large barrel that she kept full of water, and she soaked the fly paper in it. So she had, like, at the ready, the arsenic water. Jeez. Pretty brutal.
Well, I mean, she needed it when the need struck. I mean, considering that some of these men were only married to her for a few months.
Yeah, if she decided she didn't like this one, man, he was out.
Yep.
And then her children, oh, just
Luckily, she only had 2
yeah.
that we know of. That doesn't
That we
mean a
know of.
thing. It doesn't mean a thing, you know.
No case this old, it certainly could have been that she had more, but it's just horrifying to me to think that, well, for one, that she's only served about 10 years in prison. I mean, for all those murders, that's just wild. I'm
Yeah.
sure that at the time it was very unusual to be charging a woman for murder and to be housing a woman in the state penitentiary.
Yeah.
Not usual, she
No.
obviously was super manipulative and did a really great job of, using her wiles on that that prison guard to get out.
Yeah. Oh,
Yikes.
yeah. She knew what worked. That was for sure.
Yeah,
I
she
just
did.
cannot get over the fact that she was found in Hawaii.
Right.
That wasn't Kauai, it was Honolulu, to be fair,
It
but
was.
she was extradited from Hawaii back to Idaho to stand trial for
Yeah.
murdering her husbands and maybe the little girl. They never really say if there were charges on the baby or not, or
Yeah,
the
it's not
daughters.
very clear what the charges are, and
Yeah.
not all of them were in Idaho, some of them were in other states.
Yeah.
And so it's not 100% clear how that all went down, but
No.
she sure didn't do much time for what she'd been convicted of.
No, that's the other thing. For that amount of death, it is
Yeah.
insane that that's all she got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, but to be fair, it was a 10 years to life sentence.
Mm.
But that's all they inflicted was 10 years, and then they pardoned her with a full
Yeah.
pardon. But in those 10 years, she escaped.
Yeah.
Like,
and they just brought her back and put her back in prison. It wasn't
I
like,
don't know if the courts were just a lot more forgiving then than they are now, but what the hell?
yeah. I just really think because she was a woman, they really had a hard time knowing what to do with her.
Yeah.
Now that when, obviously we're watching this play out in the Vallow Daybell case, but I think back then it just was so unusual for a woman to do these things. People didn't tend to think it was even possible,
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, here's an article that was in the New York Times in 1921.
This is funny.
Mm-hmm. Mrs. Lyda Southard, convicted here last week of the murder of Edward F. Meyer. Of course, this is from Twin Falls, Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
Her fourth husband was sentenced today in district court from 10 years to life imprisonment. The defendant stood up, fixed her eyes on the bench, and received the sentence without a tremor. Notice of appeal was filed by her attorneys, but a stay of execution of sentence was not asked. Not execution of sentence, to be clear.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how we word things these days, but
no.
Mrs. Southard packed up all of her belongings about the county jail yesterday, and according to her attorneys, had expressed a wish to begin serving her sentence at once. Under Idaho law, the duration of indeterminate sentences is largely in the hands of the State Pardon Board. Mrs. Southard appeared in court alone, except for her attorneys. Her husband left for San Francisco last night to resume his duties as a petty officer in the Navy. Remember, he was in the service in Hawaii.
Yeah.
No action against Mrs. Southard is contemplated in connection with the deaths of Edward or Robert C. Dooley, former husband and brother-in-law, respectively, according to local officials. Okay, so that's why she only got the one sentence, because they actually only convicted her for the one murder.
Yeah.
Got it.
Wow. Very, very interesting. Well, he also immediately filed for divorce, stating his reason for divorcing her was that she is now a convicted felon. I think his real reason was, I don't want her to kill me too.
Right?
Self-defense.
He was really lucky.
Yeah, he was. He was really lucky.
It was just a matter of time.
It really was. Yeah, yeah.
Hell, she was probably already giving it to him. He just didn't know it yet.
I bet that barrel she kept full of arsenic water was probably all loaded up.
I would imagine. Yep. So there you have it. Lyda Southard, Lori Vallow be-alike. I want to say look-alike, but they're probably not. But,
not
twin
really.
Not
really, but there have been, and this has been brought up like in news stories and things in our community several times, that there are some real similarities between the two of them.
Yeah.
And there really are. So
yeah,
interesting stuff.
You bet. Yep. So there you go. Well, that's our first case this week. We will be back tomorrow with a group, we'll be back tomorrow. This is our group case for the week. We'll be back tomorrow with a really special MMIW case that we've been working on for a few weeks. And yes. Kristi has pulled together some really good information. This is a case we're excited to share and sad to share and glad to share the info about. And then we'll be back on Wednesday with another code read case. And then Wednesday night, of course, case updates. Thursday night, the psychic hour. So lots of good stuff coming. And gosh, I think, is there really nothing in the Vallow Daybell case this week? As far as we know.
As far as we know, but if something changes, we will certainly let you know.
Lightning could strike, it frequently does around here. So
it does, yeah.
Well, you guys have a wonderful day, night, evening, whatever you're doing and wherever you are. Make it good. Please be good to yourselves. This has been another production of True Crime Paranormal with the Psychic Sisters. Take care.